couple of women who have played a very influencing role in my life. I would definitely say one of them is Nirupama, my wife.
Yeah.
What I picked up from her is, she has a very calm and balanced approach to life.
So, Rajesh, let's dive into some stereotypes.
I believe, I need to treat women the same way I treat a man in any given situation. But at the same time, I think it's also important to be mindful of the context and then provide the necessary support as and when required.
If you could swap roles with a woman for a day, who would it be and why?
Taylor Swift,
Okay, all right, interesting. And one
Why?
thing that your daughter has taught you.
voice of justice.
Oh, yes. Hi, Rajesh, and welcome to the About Her show. This
I,
is a show where we largely get trailblazing women to share the story of their lives with us, to tell us about their successes, failures, challenges, all of that. So while they get a platform to showcase themselves, they help us inspire other women who are listening in. Women who have dreams, ambitions, goals, but for some reason are not able to pursue them.
yeah.
So, we hope that by listening to such inspiring conversations, those women also get inspired and motivated. Now, along with women, we also get men on the show, men who we believe champion such women. And we at the About Her, we truly believe that you are one of such men who not only supports but helps amplify the voices and ambitions of women, because you think that gender responsibility, gender equality is not the responsibility of only one gender. It is to be shared by both. So keeping that in mind, we invited you on the show, and if I may say, we are truly honored to have you here, and a very, very warm welcome to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sangeeta. And for me, it's an absolute pleasure and privilege to be here with you on this podcast. And I think the topic that you are talking about is a very, very important topic, very pertinent one, and very happy to share my views on that.
Thank you so much. So let's get started. So, like an icebreaker, if you could go back in life and you could provide us with some insights, into your childhood, early life, and how you think those experiences shaped your life, your character, the kind of person that you are today.
Sure. I mean, I can start with that. So I come from Chennai. I come from a very middle class family in Chennai. So did all my schooling there, pretty much actually the same school in the local neighborhood there.
Mm.
So one of the things that I learned very early on in life is the importance of a good education. Like a typical Tambram, it
Yeah.
was drilled down upon that you need to get a good education so that you can succeed in life, whatever that success meant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other piece was around some of the core values that my parents instilled in me, which
Mm-hmm.
was around hard work, discipline, being humble,
Yeah.
right? And these things have actually stood me in good stead throughout my, of course, the formative years,
Mm-hmm.
through my schooling, through my college, and actually through my work life as well. So I'm very, very deeply grateful for the instilling of some of these values that I got, when I was in school and growing up in Chennai.
Mm-hmm.
The other interesting part of it was I then went on to do my engineering from BITS Pilani. So that was the first time I ever got out of Chennai to go and stay in a hostel all the way up in Rajasthan.
Okay.
And again, BITS Pilani, as you know, like many other colleges, multilingual, multicultural. So it
Yeah.
just gave me perspective. So, for example, in Chennai, and I'm talking 40 years ago, nobody used to speak too much of Hindi, and I
Yeah.
had barely learnt Hindi as a third language in school till a certain grade. And
Mm-hmm.
then here I was thrown into a place like Pilani where I had to learn Hindi to survive, right? And today my Hindi is passable, maybe not grammatically fully there. It is all thanks to what I managed to pick up at college,
Yeah.
right? So getting that exposure to people from different parts of the country, speaking different languages, different cuisines. So that itself was a great experience in terms of learning about embracing diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And the two other pieces that I picked up from my engineering time is how to be independent. So you're moving away from a very sheltered life at home to a completely different place. So how are you independent and how to be adaptable to any situation?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the last piece I would mention is then I went on to do my MBA from XLRI soon after engineering.
Yeah.
And there again, some of the skills that I picked up again, which stand me in good stead today,
Mm.
is around team working, collaboration. So, through all those small group activities, but
Yeah.
also very importantly, starting to deal with conflict. Because when
Yeah.
you're working in small groups on a particular project, obviously people have points of view, and then sort of how do you deal with and manage conflict. So these were some of the, again, experiences that I picked up from there, which have helped me today.
Mm.
And lastly, the bonus of having gone to XLRI, I met my wife, Nirupama, there.
Yeah, 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 that we know. So yes, actually, you're so right. These are little nuggets that we pick up along the way, which maybe at that point we don't realize how valuable they will be. But when we, reach a certain age and then we look back, we realize how they helped shape us and how they helped us, move on in life.
Absolutely.
So tell me, growing up, of course, you must have had women in your life, starting with your mom and then maybe sisters and, cousins and all of that. So, were there any valuable life lessons that you picked up from some of those women? And if you would share those with us?
Sure. Again, like I mentioned, I come from very humble background. So my
Mm,
mother was just had done a graduation at that point of time. Of
mm,
course, and I have a younger sister. So my
mm,
mother and sister did have a role to play in my early formative years in terms of looking up to them, in terms of just being calm, being very poised and stoic. So those are some of the traits that I remember from those times. And
mm,
as I sort of grew up and started going out of Chennai and experiencing people from other parts of the country as well,
mm,
one of the bigger aspects was also around the whole diversity piece that I was talking about.
mm,
And
mm,
specifically, if I have to double click on a couple of women who have played a very influencing role in my life, I
mm.
would definitely say one of them is Nirupama, my wife.
Yeah,
What I picked up from her is, she has a very calm and balanced approach to life,
yeah.
and with a high level of equanimity. And,
Mm,
I am a passionate person by nature.
yeah.
And sometimes the highs can be high and the lows can be low,
Mm-hmm.
although over time that I've sort of tried to moderate that. But,
Yeah.
that's something that I picked up from her. And of course, there are big benefits of having a in-house coach, mentor, and a philosopher in her. So that's really been helpful and played a big role in my shaping my own journey.
Mm,
And I think the other person who I would say is my daughter. She's
yeah.
23 now.
Mm,
For me, what I learned from her is how her generation thinks. And they have completely different ideologies, very different in terms of their thought processes. So it's good to have those conversations to understand how they think, and sort of can we also look at things from a very different perspective.
right.
And the other piece, we often joke about it, but it's true, is we call her the voice of justice, right?
Okay.
So they have this massive sense of social justice,
Mm,
and that reflects in their conversation and their behavior. So
huh,
that's something that I picked up. And the last thing I would say, Sangeeta, is from my daughter. She was instrumental in us starting our not-for-profit initiative, which
yeah.
we call "My Daughter is Precious." And
Mm,
I'll just spend a minute talking about it.
sure, sure.
We started this in 2016 when
Mm,
we were in Bangladesh.
mm,
So Kavya, my daughter, she came back from school one day, and she was in eighth grade at that point of time,
mm,
and said that there are 65 million girls who don't have access to education
mm.
all over the world, and is there something that we can do from our side, any little bit which can help?
Okay.
So we started brainstorming on it. I'm passionate about photography, so I do a lot of photography. And then we also read a very interesting article which
Huh,
said that there was a British woman who was going around taking pictures in underprivileged areas, and
mm,
she used to feel bad that she can't give a picture to them because it's on her camera, right? So
mhm.
then she started taking Polaroid pictures so that she could give it to them. So
Okay.
we put two and two together, and then what we started doing was we used to go to underprivileged areas in Dhaka,
Mm,
take Polaroid pictures of the father and the daughter, and
okay.
give it to the father and say, "Your daughter is as precious as your son. Treat her well, give her a good education."
Yeah.
And started spreading gender, awareness first to start with. Then we used to put up these stories like, the Humans of New York kind of stories.
Okay.
So Aisha is wanting to be a teacher. She likes to play this. Her best friends are so and so, and so on and so forth. So that's something that we did to start with. But
Mm,
then when we moved back to India, And currently, for the last 6 years, what we have been doing is we've tied up with two colleges in Delhi,
Mm-hmm.
Janki Devi Memorial College and Holy Family Nursing College in Okla.
Mm.
And Nirupama, Kavya, and myself, we collect money from friends, family, and folks who want to contribute,
Yeah.
and then support the education of the women in those colleges.
Okay.
And so far, very happy to share that we've supported about 84 women so far.
Mm-hmm.
And Nirupama also runs a mentoring program for them because apart from the financial money,
Mm.
it's also the mentoring that makes a big difference in the outlook for these women and how they can sort of progress in their career. So
Mm.
again, these are some of the things that I've had the good fortune of doing it along with my wife and my daughter, and
Mm.
that's something that I feel extremely proud about.
As you should, because like when you give that option, in the sense that when you're open to other perspectives and other viewpoints, you yourself, you start looking at things in a different way and in a better way. So I think that, I mean, I can see that the influence has been pretty strong, and which is good. And we need more of these kind of people who are more receptive to these, influences and different perspectives. So tell me, has there ever been a moment in your life when a woman's perspective completely changed your outlook on something? We all have a different way of looking at things, but then, someone just comes and, hey, we start looking at things or at that particular situation in a completely different way. So have you ever had
Yeah.
that opportunity?
Yeah, I'm sure there have been quite a few instances, but the one which I can speak about and which sort of has stuck in my head is this is way back in 2014, so about 10 years ago,
Yeah.
when I had just started off as managing director for Perfetti in Bangladesh,
Okay.
right? So I had moved there, new country, new culture, new company, everything was new, right? And I was doing a general manager role for the first time.
Mm.
So one of the practices I had started was having 15-minute coffee connects with people across the organization,
Okay.
right? So it gave me an opportunity to meet them. And I used to ask them about three questions.
Mm.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and your family. What are some of the things you like about the company? And what are some of the things I can do to change something, to make it better,
Mm.
right? So it was be a 15-minute conversation. Initially, people were like, oh my God, why does the MD want to meet me kind of thing? But then people started warming up to it.
Mm.
And I still remember this conversation I had with the front office receptionist, right? This lady I was having a chat with her just to understand from her, about her family and what's working and what's not.
Mm.
And when I asked her, what can I do to make things better? One of the things she came back and said was, in those days, we had a tiny office in Dhaka.
Mm.
And she said that, look, for men, Muslim men can pray anywhere they want to.
Yeah.
Whereas for women, for us to pray, we need a little bit of privacy,
Right.
right? And there was no prayer room for women in the office.
Okay.
And, I am a Hindu, I'm a male, so I have absolutely no idea of this as a requirement, right?
Yeah.
And since she was a receptionist, she didn't feel comfortable or confident enough to speak about it to her manager or to anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the minute I got to know this, then we cleared up one of the visitor manager rooms
Mm.
and converted that into a prayer room for women.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, the point there is sometimes you have to make those connections, you have to reach out to people to
Absolutely.
understand what they are going through. And
Yes.
once you're able to do that, then you're able to respond to it and really appreciate and respect the diversity around us.
Absolutely. That is so important. Your mindset, I think, has to be open and flexible,
Absolutely.
open to new ways of looking things, open to, yes, a difficulty which, as you said, a man and a Hindu would never understand till somebody
Correct.
voiced it, and the fact that you're open to it and then you did something about it. I think that is where, the whole thing fits in. All right. So, Rajesh, let's dive into some stereotypes. There are so many stereotypes which we observe, that have to do, with women, about women, what they can do and what they cannot do. So, if you were to think back, or if you were to reflect, what has been the most absurd misconception that you've encountered about women, and how did you debunk it?
Ah, I mean, actually, there are many, many stereotypes, not just around women, but around men as well, right? So there are quite a few that one encounters on a daily basis.
Right.
But yeah, again, if I were to pick one, I would say there is this often heard thing, at least when I was in my early days of career and in my middle management days, that women are soft by nature and can be pushed around and given very easily under pressure. Yeah,
mm,
and my third job was when I joined PepsiCo in those days, Frito-Lay,
mm,
and I had the pleasure of working with some amazing women leaders there
mm,
and who came with very strong functional competencies and behavioral competencies, which enable them, not just to survive, but actually thrive in an organization. Yeah. And, some of the names that come to mind, of course, starts with Indra Nooyi right at the top,
mm.
being a brown woman who went to the US very early in her career in those days
Yeah, yeah.
and, did exceptionally well to become the top, to hold the top job at PepsiCo globally
Mm,
and do some amazing work there. So
yeah,
that's a great example. And then, of course, if I were to look at it from even the India PepsiCo context, there were people like Vibha Rishi, Punita Lal, Sucheta Govil,
mm,
Geetu Verma, Deepika Warrior. So a lot of very, very strong women who had the right balance of, yeah, displaying vulnerability and humility when it was required, but
mm,
also could be super tough in terms of taking the right decisions for the organization and for the people and so on. So I
mm.
think there are stereotypes and there are lots of myths which do float around, but as we can see now, a lot more people sort of breaking those stereotypes and really shining.
Yes, 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 that is true. I mean, as we go past them and we give the person a chance, a fair chance, we will see that, these are actually, things that we don't have to believe and we can, move past them. All
Yeah,
right. So, of course, surrounded by women, always surrounded by women. And, as a partner, as a father, as a son, as a brother, in every role, I'm sure you've had occasions where you needed to support the women in your lives. So, how did you or how do you support them without falling into that typical, knight in shining armor kind of a, facade, which men believe that every woman needs rescuing and every woman needs, protection, that sort of a thing. I mean, most men, I think, like to believe that. So, how have you done
yeah,
that in your life without, falling into this stereotype?
right. I think that's a great question because it's the right balance, right? And I think it starts with intentionality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the knight in shining armor is something that many men would like to have
Yes.
because it puts them in the limelight, it gives them a little bit more of an ego boost, etc. Right. So the first step I would say is to say it's not about me,
Mm,
right? It's about uh, helping somebody, and it could be a man or a woman. And that's something that I do because I would like to do that, and I
mm,
think that's an important starting point. Yeah.
mm,
So for me, I believe I need to treat women the same way I treat a man in any given situation. But at the same time, I think it's also important to be mindful of the context and then provide the necessary support as and when required, right?
correct.
So I'll just give you a couple of examples of what I mean by that.
Mm,
In my previous role as managing director of Perfetti,
mm,
one of the agenda that we had taken for the organization was how can we increase the number of women working in areas like manufacturing and sales,
yeah.
right? Now, in India, for example, unfortunately, the problem there is a lot of infrastructural issues need to be taken care of as well, right? Just having, toilets, having the right kind of change rooms for women workers in factories and so on and so forth, right? So rather than look at it as, oh, what additional benefit am I going to give somebody, and to borrow your phrase, be a knight in shining armor, I think it's about saying, am I able to provide the right infrastructure which is anyway required to be
Right.
provided
Right.
so that we can take care of their safety and well-being, rather than look at it as, oh, I'm doing somebody a favor.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think that intentionality being different is what is very important, right?
Yeah.
So that's one example that I can share.
Mm,
The other one is, I'm a certified coach and mentor, and I
mm,
think coaching and mentoring can play a great role in supporting women without necessarily falling into this stereotype. I've been associated with an organization called BD Foundation,
mm,
and I've been mentoring women mid-level to sort of grow in their careers and unlock their potential. And I also do some work with Upsurge, which is a platform created by XLRI. Again, here the whole intention is, can we provide the right kind of support and help from the almost like behind the scenes kind of thing, which
Mm.
allows then the women to sort of showcase themselves and actually unlock their potential. So again, just to summarize, it's really about how you approach it and what's the perspective that you take to it. Is it about, let me do something for them so that I can showcase myself and come into the limelight? Or is it that where it is required, where it is asked for, you're able to support them so that they can then shine?
So, yeah, so I think you've made a very, very pertinent point. It is not about you, it is about them. So, what is the intention with which you are approaching the situation? Are you looking
Absolutely.
to glorify yourself? Are you looking to put the spotlight on you and say, hey, look, this is what all I'm doing? So, that therein lies the difference. And I think if you're clear about that, I think, you will be able to break the stereotype. And this whole thing
Absolutely.
about I'm coming to the rescue, which actually I think, if I may say so, it ends up with them falling flat on their faces, because many times women are not looking for any protection. They're just looking for some
Absolutely.
support. It's not that as though I'm caught in a situation where I need you, and it's not always about your physical prowess. It is other things as well. So you've made a very, very valid point over here. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Rajesh, moving on to something which is a little different from this, like going off tangent a bit, and it is not about women only, it's about men as well, which is about, what a lot of people are doing nowadays. You've done it, I've done it, and more than ever before, which is switching careers, which I call midlife rebooting, taking on something which is different from what they'd been doing all these years. So, what I want to know is, why do you think people are doing it? Are we more aware than the previous generation? Are we more open to pursuing our hobbies and passions more than maybe our parents? So, where is the difference and why is it happening?
Yeah. And again, it's a very interesting question, and we can see it happening a lot around us.
Yeah.
I think if you were to go back to our parents' generation, number one, choices were limited. And again, I'm talking largely from an India context,
Yeah, yeah, of
right?
course.
So choices were limited, where we were talking about either you become an engineer, you become a doctor, or maybe a chartered accountant, right? Pretty much these were the three kinds of jobs that you could be doing. And if you wanted to be a chef or anybody else, it was frowned upon.
Correct.
The second thing is, I think we all come from typical middle class families where money was there, but it was scarce. Let's say, right? It was you didn't have the privilege and the luxury of sort of really spending and doing taking a sabbatical and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, if I were to look at my father, he
Mhm.
he held two jobs in his entire career. So he worked for two companies, right? So and people were very happy to sort of build their career like that and stay with that and retire from there. And
Mm.
there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's just how things were at that point of time.
Right.
And even if I were to look at myself and my generation, it has been that at least in the early stages of career, it's been like, okay, let's just suck it up, put our nose to the ground, do what we have to do so that we can build a career. So, like, for me, I did sales, then went from sales to a brand manager in marketing to a marketing manager and so on and so forth. So it was a fairly linear kind of career, so let's say. But then if you go down one generation and even further, you
Mm.
find number one, the choices are manifold, right? There are so many options that play out today. That's number one.
Mm.
Second, at least in a certain socioeconomic segment like where we stay in, I think some of the basic necessities are well taken care, and our kids have the benefit of sort of ability to explore and look at multiple of those options as well, right? So with that, what we are finding increasingly is work is important, but people are realizing that the job that we do is one part of our life.
Right.
And even in that, if they don't like it, can we look at what are some of the other kind of options that we can explore and so on and so forth? So that's one part of it. And the other part of it is, even when I'm working, can I look at more things which can sort of enrich my life and make it more holistic and make it more fulfilling, right? So I think these are two things that are starting to play out today. And to your question on what makes people switch careers and how do you look at it, I think fundamental starting point would be if each of us can sit down and say, what's our purpose at a larger level, right? So can we create a purpose for ourselves, a mission statement for ourselves, which is fundamentally based on our core values? And once we are able to create that, then that sort of acts as a lighthouse to give us a little bit of sense of direction in terms of what are the kind of spaces that I want to work in. And equally important, what are the kind of spaces I don't want to work in.
Right.
So, I wrote out my personal mission statement when I was in my mid 40s.
Okay.
And even today, every choice that I make on a daily basis
Mm.
actually stems from that. Because sometimes people think it's a very abstract statement, and what you do with that purpose and mission statement. But actually, if you think about it, the choices that you make on an everyday basis, the kind of work that you do,
Right.
equally like the kind of work you don't do, they all sort of stem from that lighthouse purpose that we have. So I think that is something that can help people on navigating through multiple options. Like people, again, I'm also a transition coach. A
Mm.
lot of people come to me and say, oh, should I switch career? Where should I switch to? And so on and so forth. Now, I can't answer that question. You have to answer that question for yourself. And a
Absolutely.
good starting point is, what are the core values that govern you? From that core values, what's the larger purpose that you would want to have for your life? And how does that start manifesting in more tangible things around the kind of work that you do, the passions that you would like to pursue, and so on and so forth.
So you're right, identifying that, being able to put that purpose down. I think if
Yeah,
you write it down, it will clear up a lot
absolutely.
of things in your head, because you're so right. A lot of us don't even know what purpose is and why should we have a purpose. So once you are able to identify that, then everything will start falling in place. The choices that you make, things you do, you don't do, will all be based, or they'll flow out of that. So can you share your purpose with us? What is your mission?
Sure,
Yeah.
I'll be happy to share that.
Yeah.
So my mission statement has two parts to it.
Okay.
One part is about positively impacting and inspiring people around me.
All right. That's
And
one.
the other part is to actively seek new experiences to lead a more holistic and fulfilling life.
Wonderful, wonderful. How clear, I mean, your clarity of thought just comes across. You want to
Thank
make
you.
impact. You know that you want to do it. You want to, go through various experiences. So you know exactly what you want to do. And I think we have
Yeah.
that clarity. It will just declutter
And
the mind in so many ways. Half the times you're doing stuff
absolutely.
we don't even know whether we should be doing or not. So
Yeah.
I think
And
that.
Sangeeta, if I may just add one, sorry to interrupt you, just to add one point to that. And I just wanted to I made a point on that helps in your daily choices, and I just wanted to give an example of that as well.
Yeah, sure.
So for example, when I say positively impact and inspire people around me, so the fact that I chose to become a coach and I spend time coaching and mentoring is a reflection of that, for example.
Yeah, yeah.
Or on the other piece around actively seeking new experiences to lead a more holistic life. Now I'm passionate about photography,
Mm.
and photography takes me to places and do stuff that I would have never thought of doing otherwise, right? So if I have to go for a particular shoot at a point of time, I'd go to sleep at 10 o'clock in the night so that I can get up at 4 and go, versus going and partying somewhere that night, right? So the point I'm also making is sometimes we feel it's a abstract thing, but actually, if you really drill it down and distill it down, it makes you choose a particular thing over another thing on a daily basis.
That is so true. So if I may just share with you. So last night I was at a party, Diwali season and
Yeah,
all. So I left at 11:30 because I knew that I had to wake up in the morning. Though of course the podcast wasn't so early, but I knew that I wanted to prepare, just be fresh before I, actually get on to it.
yeah,
So if you know what you have to do and you're ready to make those choices also. I mean, for someone it could be that why leave a party and why leave your friends? But my take is
exactly,
that same set of people, same drinking, same eating, same conversations, it's okay. You can miss it one day and then it's totally fine, and I'm doing something which I want to do. So knowing what
exactly.
you want on your purpose is so, so critical. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now coming back to the women-centric questions.
Yeah.
If you could swap roles with a woman for a day, who would it be and why?
If I could swap roles,
Yes.
can I swap permanently or just for a day?
Totally up to you. We are just giving you the option of a day. You can do it's whatever
Yeah,
you.
I mean, I would love for it to be longer. So one person who comes to mind is Taylor Swift.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And why?
So two reasons. One, I love music, but
Okay.
unfortunately, I can't sing to save my life. Right.
Okay.
So I would love to sing like her and perform like her. So that would be one reason.
Mm,
And the other one is actually I'm very passionate about marketing, and
okay.
I think I can learn a thing or two from her. In my mind, she's one of the best marketers I've seen
Okay.
in terms of her ability to connect with the audience, her ability to tell stories through her songs, how she can leverage FOMO through limited editions of what she puts out there, and last but not the least, how she can constantly reinvent herself to stay relevant. I mean, there are some amazing lessons that any marketer can learn from her. So one person I would pick would be Taylor Swift.
Great, great. And you're so right. I mean, even if you're not into marketing, I think you can pick up so many lessons from
Oh,
you.
absolutely,
Definitely,
absolutely.
what you've listed are some of the ones that we can pick up from her. All right. So, when it comes to supporting women, so while you may not want to be, or while you may not portray to be the knight in shining armor, but a lot of men also have this attitude of being very patronizing towards it, that you don't know it and I will tell you, and because you are kind of
Hmm.
treating that woman as a lesser being. So, what do you have to say about it, and how do you handle this balance? I mean, it is very delicate because if you, I mean, you step out to support someone and you have the opposite effect, that can be a very difficult situation to handle. So, how do you handle this kind of? How would you do it?
Yeah. And I think it's a great question, and it's a very relevant question, right? We see that around us all the time. To me, the first thing is I should not make any assumptions on their behalf, right? Sometimes men end up making an assumption saying, oh, that woman needs my support, let me go and help. Yeah. So, firstly, not make any assumptions on whether they need support.
Mm,
And of course, the next step is to go and ask relevant questions like, would you like anything where I can help, for
mm,
example, right?
right.
So I think that's the starting point to say, to even understand whether the woman wants some help or not, right? And it need not be help. I mean, it's just some support that you might provide in a manner which is relevant and meaningful for them. So I
Mm,
think that's very important. Recently I came across a very interesting definition of empathy, yeah,
okay.
and how it's different from sympathy. And
Mm,
it said empathy is about walking in the other person's shoes without wearing them.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not about me saying, "Oh, you poor thing, let me help you. I really sympathize for you, and let me get you out of the mess that you are in, and so on and so forth." It's about really understanding the situation and asking them would they like any support, and then accordingly supporting them or not. So the way I look at it is, it's important for me to be there and let them know that I am there. And if they choose to ask for some support, then support them in whatever way I can without making them feel small or disrespected.
That is so true. Sometimes all we need is a listening ear. I don't need your suggestion or your advice. I just want to vent it out. So,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
understanding that little thing, just venting
absolutely.
is all the support I need. So, understanding what is it that the person needs and not making
Yeah,
assumptions, which I think a lot of, not only men, women also, sometimes we start assuming that this is what the other person needs when actually it's not at all like that. So, I think that the first step is understanding what is required. Is it
yeah.
just,
And
yeah.
sorry,
No, no, I said, is it just being there that is required, or do you really need to open your mouth and say something, So you need to figure that out.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying?
No, so I was just saying that, and I think my coaching journey has really helped me on that because as a coach, in a coaching conversation, you do 20% of the talking and the coachee does 80% of the talking.
Right.
So to your point, opening my ears and keeping my mouth closed is something that I am also personally getting better at. And I think that's very important. Like sometimes, like you say, whether it is men or women, all they need is somebody to listen to them. And maybe if they ask for it, offer a alternate perspective to say, have you considered this? And
Yeah.
that's all is required.
So again, Rajesh, a little bit of reflection and what you observed around you. Like women are known to be able to multitask, doing several things at one time. I mean, I'm not talking about whether it's good or bad, but the fact is that they do it. So if you were to look around you and, obviously amongst the women in your life, what's been the most impressive display of multitasking that you have witnessed from any woman in your life?
So, I have a slightly different view there, Sangeeta. I think multitasking is, in my view, fairly gender agnostic, I would say. Yeah.
Okay.
I know many women who are good at multitasking, but I also know many men who are good at multitasking.
Okay.
I myself, I'm fairly good at multitasking, is what I've been told. And I
Okay.
think I do a decent job of it.
All
But,
right.
to your point, what I believe is that it has been thrust upon women from a societal context, right?
Right. Right.
Because of the way our society operates and the pressures that are there,
Hmm.
women are expected to take on so many roles,
Right. Right.
right? Whereas for men, it is a little bit more unidimensional to your point, right? So I
Right.
think that societal pressure is what results in, say, the women's ability to multitask having become much better than what it is for guys, right? But
Mhm.
otherwise, I think multitasking is something that is fairly gender agnostic.
Hmm.
So for women, of course, they need to wear multiple hats
Hmm.
and juggle things across the different kind of roles that they play. So wife, mother,
Yeah.
daughter, work colleague, friend, and so on, right? So I think it's coming more from the societal pressures and the way the society's construct is there
Hmm.
than anything else. Yeah. And to your question on example of a person who's great at multitasking, I think Nirupama is very good at that.
Hmm.
She wears multiple hats. She's a leadership coach. She's written 3 books. She's building her own practice around diversity and inclusion.
Hmm.
Yet she's there for the family whenever it is required. And
Hmm.
in fact, she does a great job at delegating tasks at home
Hmm.
and including to me. And
Hmm.
I've learned to pull my share of work as we go along as well.
Yeah, I think that is, of course, you have to learn and believe that you can't do everything yourself. And you
Correct.
do have
Exactly.
a very valid point here. It is a society which has thrusted upon women. It's not that women love doing it.
Yeah.
Many times you don't want to do certain things because for whatever reason, lack of time, or sometimes you just plainly don't want to do it. But it is that pressure which makes you do it. But again, if you learn to delegate, if you learn to seek help, if you learn to just say, I can't do it, I think, it'll make life easier for everyone around. All right.
And one
Yeah.
very important thing you said at the end, which is the ability to say no. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And you find that that's also not easy. And again, societal wiring is being such that women find it more difficult to say no.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
then you end up taking more things on your plate than what you can manage. And
Absolutely.
that obviously results in stress and, frustration and
Correct.
all of that.
Yeah, yeah, very true. And we do it all the time. I mean, I'm just going back, by my life. I also do it. And I've now learned to say that, okay, I cannot do it. And even then I hesitate. It doesn't come
Yeah.
naturally
Yeah.
that, okay, I can't do it. Just let me say no. I don't know, somewhere you feel that no, let me just try. But how much
Yeah.
that trying, how much stress it gives you, how much it impacts you, you don't realize.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, all right. So just going to a little the lighter side of the conversation. Uh, Again, surrounded by women. So has there ever been any occasion, or there could have been multiple occasions, when a woman in your life outsmarted you? And I mean, a funny kind of an incident, if you remember, or if there is any particular person who's done this.
Yeah. I'm sure there have been many occasions.
Uh-huh.
Well, if I were to say, outsmarted me, I would say my daughter.
Yeah.
There have been many occasions where she's outsmarted me. She's managed to find the right pressure points and work things around to make
Yeah.
things happen. So can't think of any one particular situation, but if I have to pick one person, I would say my daughter.
I think, children even otherwise have a way of doing it. They can get things out of parents which nobody else can. And also,
Absolutely.
fathers and daughters. I think that's a very, very special relationship because I
It is.
remember my siblings telling me that, you can get away with anything with dad because I just had to say it and it would happen. So I didn't have to try very hard. It was, I think, just that relationship.
It just happened. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So again, like you said, women are multitasking, and that is because of the societal pressure. And it is so deeply embedded in us that we kind of feel it is our moral duty to do all those 10,000 things in one particular day. But despite that, several times we as women do not feel appreciated enough. Sometimes you just need that smile, just that acknowledgement that, okay, you've done so much and it's, like great job or, good going or something like that. So, again, if you were to reflect, what do you think is the most underappreciated aspects of women's achievements in society as of now, as of today?
Hmm. Uh, I mean, if I were to pick one, I would probably pick the amount of unpaid work that women do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as homemakers, as working women, like we discussed, they have to take care of the house, the family, the kids, and
Yeah.
a lot of this is unfortunately sort of taken for granted in our society,
Yeah.
right? So to me, that massive amount of work that gets done,
Mm.
which is not paid for and it is not appreciated most of the time.
Yes,
To me, that's the single biggest thing if I have to pick something. And while it is changing, the pace of change is still too slow
it is
and
slow.
probably changing currently only in limited socioeconomic state of the population. So I think long way to go.
Oh, yeah.
Education can help in that, and those kind of things. But still, to me, that would be the singular thing that I would speak about.
And you are so right. There's so much that goes into it, and most of the times it just goes unappreciated, unacknowledged because it's considered to be your duty. You have to do
Exactly.
it. And what is so special? And in fact, even when you're working, I mean, now of course the things are changing, which is very good. But I remember when I was growing up, it was like, okay, if you choose to work, that's fine, but the house and the family and everybody else will still be your responsibility. So that,
Yes.
and then you
Yes.
never got anything out of it, in the sense, not even an acknowledgement or appreciation. So yeah.
And
But I
to the
feel,
contrary,
yeah,
sorry, just to the contrary, I mean, if the food was good, it was good, okay. But if the food is bad, then oh, why is it bad, right? So
yes,
it sort of even works more the other way around.
yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. But I'm glad that, this kind of awareness is gradually just seeping in. It's just kind of
Yeah.
making its presence felt, but at least I think the process has begun. It may be a drop in the ocean, but then, like they say, every drop counts. So we can only hope for the best, for the future. All
Yeah.
right. So, if we look around us, there are so many powerful quotes and powerful things which women say about various things. So, is
Mhm.
there any empowering quote from a woman that you've specially liked and you think it resonates with you or it resonates with the world around us?
Yeah. I mean, there are many quotes, but if I were to again pick one, I would say there's one I read of what Oprah Winfrey said.
Yeah.
She said, think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail, and
Yeah.
failure is another stepping stone to greatness. Yeah. So to me, it resonates with me because it's very very close to the kind of mindset that I have. So I'm a very big believer of having a growth mindset as
Yeah.
opposed to a fixed mindset, right?
Mm.
And my whole philosophy is पूछने में क्या जाता है, right? You go and try
Absolutely.
it. Yeah. If you try, you succeed, great. If you fail, you learn from that and you move on. But it's
Absolutely.
very important to aim high, no matter who you are. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think from that perspective, this quote is relevant for both men and women.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
comes from a woman, which is super great, but it's absolutely relevant for everybody.
I agree. Totally agree. And I think every failure should be seen as an opportunity for growth. It's teaching you something, learn from it, rather than just focusing on the fact that you failed. You haven't failed,
Yeah,
it's just another experience. I think, again, it's
yeah,
the perspective that matters, how you look at things.
yeah. In fact, on perspective, I'll just share a small thing which I find very powerful.
Hmm.
Sometimes when bad things happen to us,
Hmm.
we tend to say, "Why is it happening to me?"
Oh, yes,
Right?
yes,
Which
yes,
which is a very victim perspective. Whereas if you were to say, "Why is it happening for me?" then you're looking at it as saying, "Okay, it's happening for me, so
yes.
that I can learn something from it and then move on."
That's true. It's that just little thing, a little tweak in that statement.
Exactly.
And from
Exactly.
being a victim, you kind of become a winner because you understand that there is something more to it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, no point playing the victim card.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So, this brings us to the end of the conversation. But of course, we're not done yet. We still have the rapid fire round. So the rapid fire
Sure.
round is five quick questions, five quick answers, whatever comes to the top of your mind when I ask you that question. Simple ones. Yeah.
I hope so.
Well, they are. All right. Okay. So we start with the first one. So you say you have a daughter. So if you were to again reflect, what's been your most memorable dad moment?
Um, when me and my daughter used to go to the underprivileged areas to take pictures of father and the daughter, and
Okay.
give them the Polaroid picture. I think that was absolutely special because one, I did this with my daughter,
Yes,
and two, we were doing it with other fathers and daughters, and that connection was absolutely special.
I can totally imagine. All right. So, of course, a long day, we all go through those, and then we all have our ways of unwinding. So, what is your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Uh, Go to the gym.
Okay. All right.
Actually, I'm passionate about fitness, and I sometimes people say, "Oh, you're tired to go to the gym," but I
Mm.
find it very energizing. So,
Yes.
or either go to the gym or go for a walk. So, any physical activity actually energizes me.
All right. Okay. The next one. What is that one thing that you wish more men understood about women?
That they are not, to use a stereotype cliche, the weaker sex. They are not. Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. We're all the same, right? And if we are able to sort of understand and appreciate that, I know it sounds very simple, but actually it is not, because we see that all around us all the time,
Yeah.
where to the questions that we were talking about, where people do have that superior attitude, and you are the weaker gender and so on. So I wish that the men wouldn't look at it like that.
Yeah. See, simple little things, but very powerful. Yeah. All right. One thing that your daughter has taught you.
Voice of justice.
Oh, yes, yes.
Genuinely.
I should have known
And
that. You had it.
yeah, she brings that perspective to say, this is not right. Look at it this way. This is right. So I think really voice of justice.
All right. Finally, a skill from the corporate world that you think helps in parenting.
In parenting,
Yes, yes,
uh, empathy and listening.
yes. That is so true. Because I think,
And
yeah,
sorry,
no,
sorry.
just parent.
So I was about to say
Yeah.
empathy and listening, which are some of the softer skills from corporate that help in parenting. But
Hmm.
if I were to pick one, so-called functional skill, I
Uh-huh.
would say storytelling, because
Oh,
in
yes.
corporate, in presentations, we do a lot of storytelling, but
Yeah,
that
yeah.
same thing helps a lot in parenting as well.
Yes, that is so, so true. Yeah. So, Rajesh, we come to the end of this conversation, and an absolutely delightful conversation. And it is so, like enlightening to hear the other viewpoint, because, when you just keep talking to the same people, so even if, of course, I'm talking to women from different backgrounds, but by and
Mm.
large, perspective remains the same. But that's why, when we talk to men, we not only get a different perspective, but a refreshing perspective, because we realize how men are thinking and how they should be thinking. And of course, when we have to coexist in this world, we need to understand, we need to know what each one of us is thinking. So, thank you very much for being on the show. It was indeed wonderful having you.
Thanks, Sangeeta. It's been an absolute pleasure being with you on this conversation. And I think a lot of questions that you asked me made me think for myself and get a little bit more clarity than where I was prior to this conversation. So thank you for that. And I just would also like to, truly appreciate the work that you're doing in the space because I genuinely think it's very important. And, like we said, every step that we take matters. And if you are all able to do our own bit to this, then the collective will hopefully take us to a brighter and a better future. So thank you for doing the kind of work that you're doing.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the About Her show. If you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more from where that came from. Our previous guests have shared some amazing stories, so be sure to catch up on past episodes. To keep up with our inspiring conversations and to never miss an update, hit subscribe, rate, review, and share the love. Follow us on social media for some great content, and don't forget to check out our website www.aboutherbysangeeta.com for stories that resonate, inspire, and empower. Know a remarkable woman or an inspiring man blazing a trail? We'd love to hear from you. Drop us a note at web.abouther@gmail.com and let's bring their story to life on the About Her show.